Hello, and I hope it's working. As you can tell, I'm in a bit of a different situation today. Look at that trash can. I should have moved it. Let me cover it. So, as you can tell, things have progressed or regressed, depending on how you look at it. Certainly not what my
Certainly
dream studio.
not.
My
Certainly
dream studio.
not.
What my
Certainly
dream studio.
not. Certainly
Studio. Can you
not.
guys hear me?
Certainly
Hold on.
studio
Can you
not.
guys hear me?
Certainly
Hold on.
studio
Can you
not.
guys hear me?
Certainly
Hold on. What is that?
studio not. Certainly
What is that?
studio not. Certainly
All right. I
studio
don't know how to
not.
mute this.
Certainly
All right. I
studio
don't know how to
not.
mute this.
Certainly
All right. I
studio
don't know how to
not.
mute this.
Certainly
What's going
studio
on with the
not.
microphone?
Certainly
What's going
studio
on with the
not.
microphone? Okay, let me try this. Can you guys hear me? Sorry about that. I'm in a bit of a situation here because I'm trying to do it from the phone, but somehow it's feeding back. So if you're in the chat room, please let me know if you can hear me all right. I lowered the volume and so let's see. Hold on just a second. So let's see. All right, so it looks like it's working on YouTube. So you probably can hear me. But anyway, as you can tell, the studio is in disarray. I've moved a lot of stuff out. That's my desk. Look at that poor thing. That's my recording console, my desk, and it's all scattered around the studio. And in just a few days, actually in 2 days, we're moving it all out to Madrid, where, as some of you know, I'll be moving to in the next few weeks, and then starting in September, hopefully, I'll be able to build it again in Madrid. So it's going to be interesting, and it's going to be a lot of work, but probably not as tiresome as taking it all apart, because building a studio is fun, but taking it all apart is a pain in the ass. And I've been doing this, excuse me, I've been building the studio for so many years, and I think just a few months ago I said, this is it, I'm done. I finally have my dream studio, and now just a few weeks later, actually, I'm putting it all away. But excuse me, I don't know what's going on. There you go. And so it's I see there's a few of you in there. Please join the chat room. Let me know who you are. Let me know where you're from, and if you're one of the usual suspects and one of our usual followers, please stop by and say hello. And today I have nothing prepared, of course, because I didn't even think I would be here. Then there's gonna be well, there was a slight change of plans, and things kind of got moved forward a little bit, a couple of days. So I'm here today. I'll be doing this during the beginning of the week, and then I'll probably skip next week, but I will still try to be here somehow. All right. Oh, hello everyone. I know Indrajit, Tasfa from Portugal. That's right. We're kind of neighbors. We're gonna be more neighbors in a few weeks when I'm in Madrid. And hello, Carlos. What's up, Carlos? Good to see you from Norway. Look at that. Well, your name is not Nordic or not too Nordic, but I know what you mean. Carlos is a student of mine. He's from Spain, but now relocated in Norway. So it's kind of cool and fun. I always tell my students, if you can, move out, move on and visit different cities, live in different countries. That's the best thing you can do. So Carlos is doing that. In Dragit, of course, what's the weather like in Dragit, where you're at? I hope you're safe. I know there's been problems out there with the virus. I hope you've been vaccinated. And I'm actually immune now, and so I have my certificate. I can travel, and hopefully I'll be able to travel in August, just for a little while. And but with the move and everything, is gonna be not that much of a vacation actually. But anyway, so today I will just answer your question. This is the only guitar that I got left. Everything else is packed. The Parkers especially. The Parkers, actually, I'll take them later on, but they're already packed in their cases, sealed and all that. So the Parkers are safe. This is actually the only guitar that I got left, and the only reason, poor thing, is that she doesn't have a case. So she will have to share her case with another guitar that I'm moving, and then I'm gonna bring back the case and then move this one out to Madrid. And so today I'll just answer your questions if you want, and anything you want to talk about guitar. And we'll skip the 21 licks thing, but you can still check it out. There's a link below if you want. There's a free PDF with licks, riffs, and all that kind of stuff, and it's 100% free, and you can get it there. I see there's a couple of you here who support the channel. Thank you very much. If you do want to support the channel, there's a little link for PayPal, but you don't have to, of course. But if you want to, it's very much appreciated. It helps keep things going. And if not, you can, there's books you can buy, and I've gotten some very good feedback on them. So it seems like people are happy with them, and you can contribute to the channel and still get something out of it. You can stream the music, all the good stuff. I do have to promote my music because that's kind of what I do. And speaking of which, this is the thing with the studio, right? People get, sometimes they get impressed by the studio, but keep in mind that this studio took me about 30 years to build. Well, not 30, but 25 since I started my very first small studio in the basement. It was 25 years ago. And so, it takes a while. If you're young and starting out, don't worry about it. You don't need 1/10 of this stuff to make great music, much better music than those of us who do have a bigger studio make. So certainly don't be intimidated by it. And also the other thing is, when I started putting stuff together like this, software was way behind. So for example, synthesizers and even guitar simulators, I have amps, because, well, not anymore, but they're somewhere. But amps were a necessity if you wanted to get good sounds out of guitar. But nowadays you have all these great options with plugins, simulators, and all that stuff. So certainly you don't need any of this. And I have to keep reminding people sometimes, because they get carried away by the amount of gear that they think they need. You don't need much. Some people make great music with a few gear, with very little gear. And a student of mine, actually, I just went with her to a store, and we bought just very simple things: an interface, a good microphone, a good cable or two, and a good pair of headphones. Very simple things. And she now has a studio where she can, record her songwriting. She's a singer-songwriter, so she would record that. And maybe she's here. Say hello if you are. And so, with less than 1,000, we could make we could create a great environment for her. So certainly you don't need all this stuff. So don't get discouraged if you see some people have more gear or whatever. It's just the evolution of things. If I started out today, probably I wouldn't have all this stuff. The thing is, it's been an accumulation of things. And the other thing, oh, hello, Alex. Hello, Manuel. What's up? So you see, we have people from all over the world. That's great to hear. And Carlos, am I shipping my guitars? No. I'm not giving my stuff to anyone. We're renting a big truck. It's not even a truck. It's like a van, like a big one. And we're loading everything ourselves. And then a friend of mine who knows how to drive this stuff, he works for a big company that does concerts and festivals. So they rent out all this gear. And so they have people who know how to drive those big vans. And so we're renting one out, and we're driving all the way up to Madrid. Download everything there. Good thing, we have, lock it and then drive back. And then a few days later, I'm going to drive back to Madrid again with the remaining stuff. And then a few days later, I'm going to drive back again. And actually, we're moving to Madrid. So now you guys know what the plan is. I have a few trips. That's about 6 hours without stopping, a bit more if you do. So that's 3 times in a week. But hey, I'm not complaining. Did you have a break? No, Manuel. No, I'm moving. So I'm moving, and this week it was really about time to get serious with this stuff. Taking stuff apart and putting it in boxes. And it's all here and in 2 other rooms that they can be locked. So I feel better about that. And yeah, so tomorrow morning, soon we're moving out. So anyway. So what was I saying about? Oh yes, the other thing about the studio that I know some of you are concerned about, the amount of gear you need. The other thing I do is, because I record my own records, every record has a little bit of a budget, because hopefully you try to sell a few to sell a few CDs. But the reality is that most records, most projects are actually a bet, right? You make the album, and then you go like, okay, well, I'm not sure I'll be able to make the money back. And if I make the money back, how much money I'm going to make back, and so on. And so instead of, very early on, I decided I would produce my own records and record them with varying results. I'm the first to admit, right? But I did Lords of Time, a little EP that I got in early 2000. And before that, I did one in 98. And those two were in a studio, and even though people in the studio had the best intentions, they were just not my way to work. I wanted to do things quick. I wanted to, I like to come into the studio, and if I have an idea, I want to put it down quick. And I couldn't handle the wait, and I couldn't handle the people wasting time, and I have to go and have a smoke, and I'm tired, I'm hungry. It just wasn't for me. So I said, okay, well, from now on, I'm gonna do my own thing. And I realized how much gear you needed, and especially back then, I'm talking, very early 2000s, when gear wasn't as available as now. Bearing gear wasn't around, so or they were, but you know what I mean. So that's kind of where a lot of gear comes from. Like for one record, maybe I upgrade my speakers, and for another record, maybe I get a Kemper or I get a couple of amps, and so the truth is that you make an album, and for no matter how well it goes, it all gets put back into the thing. So some of these things might seem impressive, but it's really just a choice. And instead of buying a big car or whatever it is, I do this and I invest in the music. And so, is it the right thing to do? I don't know. Maybe. Thanks for sharing. Might be a good excuse for me to do a European road trip. Yeah, the thing is, thanks, Manuel. Yeah, I hope it's gonna be safe. Hopefully, if I were driving the van, then I would probably fall into a ditch first thing and destroy my gear. So good thing my friend is driving. But Carlos, the thing is, if you rent a big van like that and you drive all the way up to Sweden, first of all, the rental, is going to be expensive. But then you're also paying for the miles or the kilometers, in this case, you put in the van, and that's where the price is going to go way up. So you might be better off just having somebody ship it, unless I don't know how much stuff you have. I have an idea, but so I don't know if it's a good idea to drive all the way up to Sweden from Barcelona, right? How many miles is that? So it might cost you more than buying everything again in Sweden. So anyway, because we don't have the 21 leaks thing, I will just answer all your questions. Keep in mind, this is not plugged in today. I can't. I will be able to plug in maybe next week if I'm here, but I just finished setting everything up, and so I just don't have an amp in the room right now. But ask me anything, about anything, about this if you want, about this disaster. You can ask me how I pack all my stuff. Some of this stuff is pretty fragile, and you can ask me about guitar. You can ask me about anything you want, and I'll be happy to help. If not, it's just a little hangout as always. We'll talk about music and maybe some gear you want to talk about, whatever it is. Please let me know in the chat. And what else is new? Well, I don't have a lot more than this. This is enough probably. moving to a new city, and well, we're trying to squeeze everything that has to do with Barcelona in the last few weeks, because we've been here 17 years, which is longer than I think I lived in any city in my life. And so I think we've seen all of it, but it's still, there's a few places where we want to maybe hang out a bit more before we move. So we've been doing that, and it's been fun. Unfortunately, Tasfa says every average musician has to consider the money they spend on gear as being lost. We have to assume we won't make it back if we do good, but don't count on it. Yeah, the thing is, Tasfa, you would be surprised. That's a good point. You'll be surprised how many, so to speak, big musicians are in the same exact situation. Unless you are, I'm talking, I don't know, Springsteen or something like that. Most musicians live like that the whole time, and we did talk about it a little bit. But the truth is that a lot of musicians go from project to project, and if something doesn't work out, they're dropped by the label. As a matter of fact, nowadays with the COVID, a lot of artists have been dropped by labels because they can't tour. And some people control their touring, but a lot of them don't. And if you don't control your touring, then you're in trouble, because the label needs to make money. The streaming thing is not that much. And so a lot of artists are being dropped because they just don't have the budget for making the record and then promoting it with the live performance. And so we're all in the same boat, so to speak. The big names, the small names, maybe like me or smaller, and then the amateur musicians. Amateur, as in uh, as a job. I don't mean amateur as results, of course. We're on the same boat there. We're all doing the best we can. And the best we can is a good song, actually. If you want to listen to it, it will lift your spirit sometimes. That's why I wrote it. But the truth is that we're kind of all in the same boat, and I know a lot of people who are having a hard time. uh, Depending on how you diversify your things, then you'll be able to survive and resist, so to speak. And yeah, but I still rather buy my own equipment and do things myself than spend money on a studio not own gear. Yeah, that's the other thing. The problem with that too, there's like two sides to everything, but knowing how to use the gear is a lot harder than buying it. And I learned that early on. I bought a couple of things and I'm like, why did I buy this? And this was before really YouTube. Maybe YouTube had just started. It wasn't a big thing. But now with YouTube, I see a lot of people, and my experience is with students mainly, or people who ask me things on the channel. And I see a lot of people buying stuff because in the end, really, truly, you see it on YouTube. That's the thing. And going to a studio, because I started out in studios. When I was 15 or 16, I was working in studios as I would record in studios. And because back then there wasn't any other option. And I learned things that maybe some people who just grew up on YouTube for information, they're missing out on. So I did learn what the key component of a studio were, like where do you want to spend your money. I would see impressive things that never got used, right? If you spend a week in a studio and you see nobody ever touches a couple of those things, then they're probably not a priority. And maybe some other things that weren't as impressive looking, they got used all the time. And so that's kind of, it's a good guide. As a matter of fact, I always tell people who ask me how to start recording, I would tell them to just go to studios, local studio. It doesn't even matter how good they are. Go there and ask if you could just stay there for a few weeks working for free, or a few months. That's what I would do. Because going to record now, unless you have somebody paying for it, it's going to be, pretty hard. And so that's one thing that I would do if I were to build my own studio now from without knowing everything I know. But it took me a long time. It took me 20, as I said earlier, about 25 years to learn all this. And I do try to share it, sometimes like this. Sometimes, of course, I do it professionally. So, because what you learn, you kind of have to somehow monetize, right? I think we all agree with that. But, that's what we're dealing with. A lot of people getting gear, but lacking that little bit of information, which is really not that hard, but it's just something you have to keep in mind. I have a few guitars, Manuel says. Oh, that is art. No, this is not the new studio. This is the old studio. This is the old studio that is being dismantled and moved to Madrid. Of course, this is part of my music school, and the music school is staying. My friend and colleague here is going to run it, and I'm going to run the online division, which is going to start very soon. And I'm going to run that. As a matter of fact, it's already running, but I'm going to actually dedicate myself 90% to that and just a little bit to in-person students. And that's the plan, because I get requests from all over the world, and I kept saying, well, maybe later, and now I just want to make sure that I can do it properly. That means preparing material, getting the technology part, but also how you do it, because online lessons are very different from in-person lesson, like very different. You can't approach them the same way. And I've been honing that for a few years now, but with the pandemic, I've been really getting deep into it. So for every hour of lesson that I would do online, I would spend maybe 3 or 4 hours trying to devise a way of making the most out of it. And surprisingly enough, it's become maybe not, I wouldn't say better than in person, but certainly as valid as in person. You need a different approach. You can't teach somebody the same way. It's similar, and to the student, the experience is almost the same. They'll think they won't even probably notice the difference. But as a teacher, you have to really pace yourself differently, and to achieve as good a result as in person. So that's what I've been focusing on, and I think I have it down now. But it's going to be launching more and more later on. But yeah, this is the old studio. Anyway, long story short, I have a few guitars, 2 small amps, a couple of electronic keyboards, several wind and brass acoustic instruments, 1 guitar pedal, and recording software. Well, you got everything you need, Manuel. And you know what? Those acoustic instruments are going to be great for you, because a lot of people now do everything in the box. That's also why you see a lot of stuff, the sitar, And like for example, in Dreams, in the song In Dreams, that sitar thing in the beginning is an actual sitar. And I could have done it with a library, but as often as you can put in your own instruments, you'll find an incredible advantage to those who use libraries. And because we all kind of, you're all gonna buy the same libraries, right? If you want strings, you're gonna buy your Spitfire libraries or your East West. But it's always the same libraries, and these libraries get updated and they get improved, and so everybody's is updating them, and we always end up with the same sounds. Even something as cool as the Spitfire Labs, which I talked about before, and if you don't have it, go and get it. They're free instruments that they make available to people, Spitfire Audio. And they're great, but I already know that if I'm using one of those things, there's like a million people out there who have the same exact sound. And so the fact that you have all those instruments makes it will make a big difference. So for example, I'm sorry if I talk about me like this, but that's all I got. And but a lot of my songs, if I use percussion, if I use shakers, or something as dumb as a tambourine, or if I use something, maybe a certain percussion, I always do it and record it live. I put up the microphones and I record them, and maybe my tambourine or my shaker won't sound as good as a super professional library of tambourines, but it's going to be my tambourine and nobody else is going to have it. And it sounds strange, but your brain somehow perceives that. It perceives that, and also that you're playing it live and you're not simulating the actual performance. So it's very important. So if you have wind and brass instruments, even just sampling that will put you a step ahead. So I'm always, expanding on your question, which is great, on your comment. I would always suggest that if you can, you record things in your own studio with your own microphone and make your own sounds for your records. That's very important. And I know that a lot of people who actually, film composers that I know. And by the way, I'm doing the soundtrack. I've started work on it. Not the best time to do it because now I don't have a studio, but I wrote some really cool music, if I might say so, for this little short movie that's gonna come out, and it's gonna be great. So it's fun. But anyway, I know some actually serious composers for media, and they do the same thing. They all have the libraries, but they're always trying to find something they can use. Maybe go out in the street and record some noise, and then put it in their soundtrack. And it's incredible how subtle but important that is. Tasfa says, I can't believe there isn't some sort of that owns music distribution and streaming platforms. Why do musicians let businessmen make all the billions? Musicians of the world unite. Yes. Well, yeah, we tried. We all tried. We tried to sell CDs, right? But then CDs go out of fashion. We tried to set up a streaming thing, but then you have to have backups and you have to have a whole infrastructure where people can log on anytime they want and stream. So who's gonna pay for that? It's I think Tidal was a similar thing. My music is on Tidal, but it's supposedly Tidal is owned by musicians. But what kind of musicians? I remember when they signed the Tidal thing, there was Daft Punk, and there was who was it, Madonna, and there was Rihanna. These people are like not like everyday musicians, in the sense that their problems are different, right? Like, it depends, like how many millions can we make. But for most musicians, it's just a matter of being able to continue doing that. And it's kind of a choice you make. I assume that for no matter how well my records do, I would probably not make a lot of money from them because I'm putting it all back into this. But at the same time, Tasfa, if I don't know where I would be if it wasn't for Spotify, YouTube. Surprisingly, as it seems, with the numbers this channel is pulling, but I'm still there. I can still go on Spotify and see that every week my music is played all over the world, and it allows me to create this ecosystem where I can survive as an artist. But well, artist is like, oh, look at me, I'm an artist, but as a musician, and or at least I'm trying to be a musician. And so on one hand it's pretty bad because I get paid nothing for streams. Almost, it's like laughable the amount of money I make a month. But at the same time, it allows for the whole thing to exist, right? The reality of me being a musician, it might have not been possible for me 30 years ago. Or maybe 30 years ago it would be like, oh yeah, great guitar player, cool, let's sign him to a label. But then where I would be today, I don't know. So it kind of goes both ways. I think you still have to find a way to monetize. That's very important. And I don't mind giving stuff out, you know, and I don't always do it for promotion. Like the one chord a week series took me, I don't know how many dozens of hours, but at the same time, I'm not gonna make anything from it. Nothing. Not even promotion wise. You know, I'm not promoting music. I'm not promoting anything. I'm selling with those things. So I like to do it. I like to do stuff like that. But I'm conscious of the monetization options that I have to face. But you know, everybody has to do it. I'm not sitting here complaining. You have a store. You have to sell stuff. You have a restaurant. You have to sell food, and all that. And nobody's gonna fault you for it. So sometimes musicians do have to realize that if their work is valid, then they have to charge for it, and be very careful when they don't, because then you start a trend of working for free that I've seen where that goes, and it's not is not a nice thing to see. Some sort of union, yeah, I don't know. Well, I don't know. I don't think unions kind of work that well for a lot of people. Let's see, Indrajit. Oh yeah, how difficult was it to produce my first album? Well, it was, which one? The one I made myself. That was Power Were Fantastic. Well, I produced the EP also, but the EP was done in a studio, so it drove me nuts. People weren't working hard enough, and you know that's a problem with me. I can work for 8 or 10 hours a day, and I kind of expect the same from everyone, which is kind of stupid. But Power of Fantastic was pretty hard, but I was blessed by ignorance because I didn't really know what I was doing. And so I kind of went along and said, you know, this is probably not how it's done, but I got no other option. So Power Fantastic was really a matter of you make it the way you can make it, or you don't make an album. And I really was clear that it was time for me to have something, to have an album ready. And because it was all kind of, you know, I did know people and people knew I played, but it was always kind of like, on faith, right? Because I just come back from America, and maybe you know this guy. I was in NAM, and oh, you're the guy who plays. You play so well, but everybody was kind of talking about it, but nobody could actually. I didn't have anything to show for it, and so I felt a bit like a fraud. So I said, you know what? Maybe I can't really produce an album, but I can just make something available that will kind of show that I can what I can do. And then it kind of came out how it came out. You know, I understand there's limitations to that record, but at the same time, it does have several songs that I really like. You know, and I've been using since. And it was hard, but it wasn't that hard because I was just ignorant. I think the harder ones were "Feel the Sky" and "Lights and Shadows," where you can see an actual progression. You know, a big may I say so, a big progression in sound quality, in fidelity, in production, and you know, I'm the first to admit that I'm not what do you call it, an authority on record production. You know, you get better, but you know, it was pretty hard those two because then I started having these lofty ideas what I wanted, and I was aware that my skill level couldn't stay at the level of Power of Fantastic. So it's pretty hard, but the music is the easy thing, right? The production thing is the problem. You know, now it's better. Now I feel more confident. I can make a demo that basically sounds like the record. So then I trust myself. That's the other thing. If something sounds good to you, you kind of have to trust that you have an opinion that is valid, and you can just think of all the records you heard. You know, some students ask me like, how do you know what to do with the sound? How do you know if you're recording it well? Well, you've been listening to music your whole life, and you listen to 100 records or 1,000 records or 2,000 records, and you kind of know what sounds good. So you kind of just have to shut it off, you know, your critical brain, and just trust your ear, and that works pretty well. So if you need some advice, that would work. Manuel says the flute and piccolo sounds fake. Oh, sounds fake in software. Yeah, they do. Well, it's getting better and better, but yeah, nothing will ever sound like somebody playing. And the problem with, I think, is a lot to do with the tempo. So when you play something, no matter how perfect you play it, there's always these little variations. And when you play it in MIDI, you tend to program it. And then if you introduce little variations there, they're still programmed and they never sound quite right. So a pad or an orchestra playing strings, that's fine. But anything solo-y, it's a bit of a problem. Let's see. What do you think about the Italian community music off? I saw many good artists. Oh, hello, Danny. Good to see you. All right. Danny95. And you are from Italy, I think, from your question. Well, it's good to meet you. As you know, maybe you know, I'm Italian, so ciao. And what do you think about Italian community music off? I saw many good artists being promoted there. I'm afraid I don't know about it. Please let me know more. What is it like? Is it like a magazine or like Bandcamp? Bandcamp is one thing I want to get into, and I just haven't had the time to do it. But I think I can just probably upload my stuff there. Let me see. I don't know you. Do I, Danny? Trying to look at your profile. Sometimes if I forget your name or something, I'm pretty good with it. I pride myself with remembering everyone, but I do apologize if you came in like a few months ago and then you're back and I forget. Please accept my apologies. But yeah, Indrajit, it was pretty hard. And Alex, if you're still here, Alex also produces his own records, and so you kind of know, that's a problem. It's like when you do yourself, you lose that somebody there who says, that's good, that's bad, and you kind of have to focus on that and realize that maybe you don't need somebody to do that, but you kind of have to wear that hat. So sometimes I would just record and then walk out of the room, come back and play it. Actually, one thing, maybe it will help you, this advice. What you can do if you want to simulate kind of being in an environment with more people, I would do this, and I do it often. I record something. When I think it's great, I call a friend to come into the room and I play it for them with me in the room. And it feels bad, it's pretty bad to say it, but I'm not looking for their opinion or their advice, but I'm looking for my new ear, because when you listen to something with somebody, you hear it differently. You do. Like, for example, maybe you watch a movie and you say, wow, this movie is great. I have to tell this guy, or your girlfriend or your husband or whatever it is, and you tell them, watch this movie with me, and you watch and like, well, it's not as good as I thought, right? And you get you start finding all the faults. And it works very well. So you can ask somebody to come in, listen to the music with you, and you'll hear it differently with a new ear. Ok, cerca su YouTube una community che sta allargando a livello internazionale. All right, I will. Music off. I will look into it. Cool. So what is it about? Do they? You can write in Italian. I just feel bad. You can listen through their ears, and you become so self-conscious of what's going wrong with it. Oh yeah. As a matter of fact, I I do it all the time because it's terrible. And at my house, nobody's impressed by my guitar playing. As a matter of fact, they're like, "Oh, great, yeah." It's not like but it's not like they're like big fans or anything. Maybe they are, but they don't show it. And so nobody's really impressed with it. And sometimes if I show somebody else, they'll be like, "Oh, wow, that's great." But I can go home and put it on and I just hear it differently. I'm like, "What are you doing? Why are you playing all this stuff for?" Or this melody is kind of dragging a bit, and maybe you hear it so many times and you focus on the little things like, oh, the vibrato comes in and then it sweeps and then it goes bigger and then smaller and then it goes faster, and you get lost in that and you miss out on the fact that the tempo of your song is like 2 bpms too slow. And then you hear with somebody and away goes all those little details you've been laboring on, and you hear the big picture and you're like, okay, this is too slow, and then you bring it back and you make it faster. So that's one really good way of doing it. Blows me away at the quality of your albums, and to imagine it was produced by a single person. Oh, thank you, Indrajit. That's very kind of you. And I must say that yes, I do all of it myself. I usually have a drummer that does the drumming. And it's also true that I have the final help of John Cooneyberry, who is a mastering engineer. He's been around for a long, long time, worked with everyone. And so I think maybe not all my mixes, but all my albums, I sent him a couple of things before, before sending the final mixes, and he always has a little bit of advice for me, and watch this, watch that. But the problem with that, yeah, eventually you kind of have to do it yourself, because sometimes people send me their songs and I'm not really into it. If you want me to critique your song, don't bombard me with your songs on email. I that's not what I do. And if I do it, I'm not gonna be giving people advice on their mixes unless I decide to do it myself. So, but anyway, but they're like, help me with the mix. I can't help you with the mix, because if you send me a mix and I say, okay, well, the kick drum is too loud, maybe you lower the kick drum and the mix is fixed. But most likely, if you let a big kick drum being 6 dBs too loud, as soon as you lower that kick drum, then the whole mix will fall apart. And then now the kick drum is gone, or well, it's where it's supposed to be. But now your lead synth or your lead vocal or whatever it is going to be way too loud, because it was fighting with the kick drum. So now you send it back to me. I say, well, now do this and do that. And now you can hear all this reverb, because the percussive part of the song is gone, and you hear all the little air above, and it's too much reverb. So lower the reverb. Now everything is like separated. So mixing is a pain in the butt, but it becomes very difficult to help people with it. And so John is a great engineer, and he also mixes, of course, extremely. He does some great mixes. Which one was it? Well, he's done a lot, of course, with him, but there's an album by Joe Satriani called Shockwave Supernova, and John mixed it. And I always enjoy when Joe makes a record, and like pretty much everyone that I kind of I listen to a lot of records that come out. It's almost all of them. If I know a band or an artist releases a record and I know the artist, I listen to it full album. But this record, I remember listening to the mixes and like, wow, look at this, the space of the mixes. And the album was, I think it was a good album. It wasn't like the best album, but the mixes and the it was just so crisp and sharp, and it was and beautiful at the same time, and lush. And so one thing you can never say about Joe is, I mean, his guitar sounds are incredible, especially since forever. But the last 2 or 3 records, even the last record, which I don't know if you guys heard it, I didn't really enjoy too much. Maybe I should listen to it again. And I think it's a very personal record, and I think people should do that. Who gives a shit if I like the record or not? I wouldn't want somebody making a record because they think that their followers will like it. That's not what you're there for. You're there to make a record you like, and then hopefully somebody else will. But anyway, the guitar sounds on the record are incredible. And so he's already, I think he already knows what he's doing. But then John is such an incredible engineer. As a matter of fact, I suggest you guys look him up. His name is John Cooneybirdie, and if you guys don't know him, I mean, he's amazing. And he has a mastering studio at his home. He used to work at the plant in Sausalito in California. When that closed, he now has his own mastering studio. And so I send in the stuff, and he would say, okay, great, perfect. Not maybe he would say something else. Maybe I have a question, like, I think it sounds okay, but shouldn't I? And and that's one thing I would suggest people, instead of mastering your music yourself. That's very hard to do. Yeah, you can raise volumes and EQ it, but it's not what it's about. So really, if you can afford it, I would say that's what I do, right? I have to do the mastering, and I have a professional do it, and it costs. But again, if I then sell enough records to cover that, I'm happier to have that forever. That's because that's gonna stay forever, no matter how pretentious it sounds. But if I know that when I'm dead and gone, some kid somehow on YouTube or whatever the future version of YouTube is, he's gonna find In Dreams on it. I want him to have exactly the album that I made, and then sealed, so to speak, and varnished by a professional, right? So that's encased forever. And so I wouldn't want to master my own music, especially not rock albums. If I made something like synthy and stuff like that, maybe I would try it. Anyway, well, thank you though, Indrajit. It's very much appreciated. Tasfan, I wanted to ask you about ergonomic guitars. I'm jealous of your Parkers, but I've been looking into ergonomic guitars like Strandbergs. I've tried Strandbergs. I like them, but I'm not that particular. You know, you might be surprised. Look at this. This is I play this all the time. I don't really care about guitars. I know it sounds. You know, I'm honest, so I'm not trying to say this for effect. I really don't care too much. I have my 335 that I play all the time. I have my Parkers, of course. For example, at the same time, I'm very. For example, the two Parkers, they're all the same, but the two mojos that you know, the Ice Burst and the Solar Flare, those are actually 100% the same, and I still feel that they're very different one from the other. So it's not that I'm not conscious of it, but I don't let it worry me. Like I can hear sound difference sometimes in cables that I use, but I just say, okay, so what? You know, I'm not really into those details because I'm so focused on the song, for example. But I would say for ergonomics, even a Stratocaster is hard to beat. You know, depending on what you want to do. If you like Strandbergs, I mean, I like them. I like them. As a matter of fact, a lot of people when Parker went south, they told me, "Why don't you move to Strandberg?" But I'm happy with the Parkers, and you know, I didn't seem like a necessary thing to do. But I did look them up, and they do look great. And I like the futuristic thing too. But I don't know. I mean, do you have problems with your fingers or your wrists? You know, because then that might be a necessity. But for me, it's never been a necessity. As a matter of fact, I play all my guitars. I enjoy the different feel of a Telecaster or a Strat. And if one day somebody told me, you know, all the guitars in the world are gone, your Parkers are gone, and this is the only guitar you got, I'll make it work. You know, maybe put a different pickup here and whatever it is, and get used to 19 frets. I'm sorry, yeah, no, 21 frets, and that's it. I don't really get too much into those details, which sounds crazy for a guitarist. That mixing method does not work. One nice guy wanted to help on the last place of mixing and mastering. We ended up sending back and forth a lot of versions. That's right, Alex. Yeah, you can't do that. You just can't do it. As a matter of fact, you should just. The other thing is, you should mix quick. And I know I say it, and I often don't do it because I go back and I belabor it. And you know, the reason I mix sometimes it takes me such a long time is because I'm not 100% confident in my abilities. Like if I play a take, if I play a song, if I'm recording a song, and I know my song, I would play one take, two takes. That's it. I don't need more, right? But I'm confident with my playing. But mixing, you know, you're always kind of second guessing, and so you go, oh, maybe I should do this, maybe I should do that. Let me go back tomorrow, do this, do that. So my advice is start mixing fast, and if you don't want to be stressed out about it, do it like with things you're not releasing, right? So as you make your demos, right? If you demo songs, mix them. You don't have to mix them 100%, but get them to 80%. You know, get them sounding good, get them sounding well defined, getting punchy and you know, spacious. And so that means that instead of making, because if you make an album every 2 or 3 years, then you're only mixing every 2 or 3 years. But if you're constantly working on things, then you start getting this confidence, and confidence is key. I mean, in music and art, forget it. That's the big difference between people who are successful as artists and those who aren't. Not, I don't mean financial, you know, but has a successful artistic expression is confidence, being confident in what you're doing. And so mixing helps if you do it all the time. Mix everything you record. I had a lot of trouble with Strat-like headstocks with string trees. Oh yes, that one. Okay, I see what you mean. Yes, those are a pain in the butt. They got to tune too easily and they're heavier than they need to be. Yeah, well, if you're after you know, ease of I don't mean for the fingers, but ease of use. Like you don't want to worry about that, the tuning and all that. You can still fix, you know, the string trees. There are options. You can lubricate them. There are probably some brands that make replacement parts, because a lot of people still go out with Strats. But you know, when it comes to and weight is of course the Parkers are a big plus. But I don't know, as far as the actual sound goes, you know, you can sit with the guitar and in 5 minutes it will sound like you anyway. It's not like you can do too much about that. So it's all about limitations to me. So the Parkers are good because I can do everything I want with the Parkers, and they still have that sound of an actual guitar. They don't have a hi-fi sound. The Parkers really have a classic sound, depending on the pickups. But really, you get this, you know, this big, dirty and a bit loose sound, which is surprising enough. But we played shows. Well, now I haven't played for 2 years now, but maybe a bit less than that. You know, before the pandemic. But the last round of shows we did, we played a lot for a few months, and we would play with other bands. And I would always expect, you know, I would see somebody with a Strat or a Les Paul, and I say, well, I wonder what the Parker will sound like. And it sounded very similar in the body of the guitar. But then you go out with somebody, even with the PRS, which are great guitars and they're quite classic. At the same time, they're very modern sounding. They're very defined, somehow a bit too precise for me. And then Ibanez, you know, they have a lot of models, but I don't know. The Parkers, I think they're kind of leaning more toward the classic sound, which I like. I like the loose sound. For example, I like to hit a distortion, a distorted amp or a distortion pedal, and I like to hear things working. Like I want to hear the distortion evolve, because that comes from a lot of that comes from the little imperfections on the guitar. You know, those waves get into the distortion unit. They get all crunched up, and they evolve through time. When you have a very precise guitar and a very engineered guitar, then it gets a bit harder to squeeze that out. Some people don't like that. You know, some people want very specific and precise sound. So I would stay with the classics. So, you know, if I had to choose one guitar, I don't know, maybe a Strat, maybe a Les Paul, or um, well, you know, I rather have my Parkers, but yeah. So, have you guys been trying the licks we've been doing for the last few weeks? You like the classic sound too? One thing that bothers me that these ergonomic guitars always have 24. Oh yeah, the neck pickup does change the sound a little bit. Some people have been trying to fix it, squeezing a humbucker into a single coil. That is kind of the price you pay. And the Parkers, you can put it right up there on the fretboard. But it's true. I mean, you're not gonna get this sound or a Strat sound from a lot of modern guitars. But I mean, 24 frets is kind of cool though. I do use 24 frets because that high E, you know, the E on the 24th fret, it's just a very common note. You know, you don't use the 23rd fret too much, but you do use the 24th. You have that, you know, it's pretty much in all keys. By the time you get an E sharp, you know, you cover the whole thing. And in keys that are easy for the guitar, like E, A, and G, and C and D, you know, those keys that we often use, the E is always there. So you can, you know, you always have that edge at the top of the keys. You can do it with 22, of course. You can do it with 22 frets, but yeah, you know, yeah, bend it, but I can go to the 24th and bend up to a G. Now I have a minor third on top of that. So, you know, I do bend the 24th. I could probably get away with 22, but I would have to relearn a lot of things, because a lot of my songs I do end up there for just maybe 2 or 3 notes in the whole song, or maybe even less, but I do sometimes hit that note. You know, I just like to know that it's there. Like if you want to push it, then you know it's there. Oh, one thing. This week's chord in the one chord a week thing. If you're new, there's a chord every week. It's called one chord a week. It's on the channel. You can't miss it. And I think depending on what you're watching, is the first suggestion is one of those chords. And you know, not a lot of people are watching that series, which is fine. But it kind of, I'm like, come on, you know, if you're looking for something useful for your playing, that is useful. Learning those chords, even if you don't like, you know, whatever, how I teach it, or you don't like my voice, you know, whatever it is, learn those chords. But this last chord is the minor 6/9 chord. It's a beautiful chord. and sometimes YouTube helps a video and sometimes it buries it, and this video is not getting any traction. So if you want a little tip, go watch it, because not a lot of people are, and so it's one of those chords that not many people use, and it will really help your progressions. The minor 6/9 chord just came out, so if you want, check it out, because it's gonna help you out. You know, major seventh, all those, yes, but a lot of people know those chords. But the minor 6/9 is a bit less common, so it will kind of set you apart when you use it. So, any questions? And also, we will have to talk about our plans for the summer, I guess. We'll definitely, yeah, do that, Indraj. It's cool. It's cool. It's gonna help you out. But yeah, see, that's one because I know I make some shitty videos sometimes. I do understand that, and but those videos on chords, I think they're really useful. You know, I sound like a broken record, but truly, I think people should watch them. They must watch them. YouTube should force them to watch them. All right. So I'm here for another few minutes if you want. Well, I could stay for hours today because I don't want to do anything else. I've been packing stuff for 3 days. Oh, in the new studio, which by the way is going to be a long time because in the summer you can't really get any work done, not in Madrid at least, for what I've been told. Everybody kind of stops. But then in September we'll be able to start doing at least a little bit of work done on the house, and the studio will be the first thing, so I can move stuff in. And so it's gonna be different a little bit. I want to use some different colors. I don't know. We'll maybe some cream white, off whites colors, and then I have to build all the panels, and I will try to show you how I do it. And I don't think you need me to do it. I think there's a lot of people out there who's done it, but I kind of have my own method and materials and stuff like that, so I will show you how it's done. Summer plans: once my place is cleaned up, more art. Wow. All right, cool. That is a good plan. That is art. Indrajit, I'm just trying to keep up from the vast content in this channel. Intimidating sometimes. Yeah, you don't have. Yeah, you can just follow the new stuff. You know, you can. I made so many videos that I don't even know what I said back then. But I think you can kind of trust all of them. I think I never made a video just to make it. Let me think. I don't care. I'll tell you. But I don't think there's any video you have to be kind of careful with. I think they're all pretty well researched. But the new ones, you know, you can just follow those. Painting is done. Now just a crap load of odds and ends. Oh yeah, you were kind of doing work at your house. Huh, yeah. Well, I won't be doing those. You know, I'll do my studio, but I won't be building, you know, doing all the work in the house, just because it will all be crooked. I don't want to, you know, I want straight walls and stuff. But it's an older house, a beautiful place, but it's an older house. And eventually, you know, the thing is, eventually you kind of will have to get work done. And so the option is to do it now or to do it later. But the later you do it, the more of a pain in the ass it is, because you have all your stuff set up. I mean, the studio, I have to do the studio. I have to make a good soundproofing place, which I think it's pretty good, but I have to refine it. So that will have to be done first. But then, you know, you set up all, you know, the living room, you set it all up, and then you go like, well, in 5 years I would change the floors, really, and then you have to take everything apart again. And so we are kind of leaning on doing it now, of course, depending also on the economy of it, you know. But I think it's easier. I think it's easier to do it right away. But yeah, it's not something I'm looking forward to. Well, I mean, after all the things we had to go through now, because the move is such, I'm not complaining or anything, but the move is such a big thing because we've been living here for a long time. I have my business here. And, you know, so everything has to be changed. And a lot of paperwork, a lot of stuff, a lot of, you know, the new house, the mortgage, and all that. And it's a big thing. Something sounds like crackling. Really? Let me see. Sounds like crackling. Really? Let me see. Oh yeah, it's true. It can't be me though. I got no wires. Oh yeah, it's true. It can't be me though. I got no wires. It probably has something to do with YouTube or some kind of streaming thing, because I have very good internet and no wires. But maybe it's a sign. Yeah, maybe it's a. It is me. No, no, I know it's me. It's on my end, but it's probably something to do with the streaming, because I got no wires. I'm not even wearing a microphone today. Yeah, so there's nothing. I'm just looking at my phone and that's it. But so let's see. Well, maybe it's a sign then. We have been going for about an hour, which is our usual time. Maybe it's a sign then. So maybe we should adjourn to next week. I don't know if I'll be able to do something next week. I know I always say it and I'll always end up here. Maybe next week we'll do something similar, but maybe even from Madrid. It will have to be shorter though, because I won't have my internet set up yet. But anyway, what was I gonna say? Nothing. That's it. I will just see you next week if I can. If not, in a couple of weeks. But I'll try to keep this going. In August, maybe we have to take a little break. But you'll always have the one chord a week thing. But I will still try to go live. Oh yeah, one thing. If you can still hear me. Yeah, this is torture. So I will be quick. But I will start making streams as soon as the new studio set up, at different times with different cameras, you know, multiple views, maybe a bit of recording, a bit of producing, you know, move a bit away from the instructional thing and more into the kind of, you know, hanging out like we do here, because I think it's a lot of fun to do it like this. All right. Well, let me just then. Yeah, it doesn't sound too good. So let's stop here. Thank you very much, as always, for being there. Thanks for the support. Thanks for listening to the music and all the good stuff you do. And thanks for sharing your music and your art with us. No, I'm not using an interface. I'm using nothing. I'm just talking to the phone. So I have no idea what that is. But anyway, we'll see you next. How do I stop this from here? I'll see you next week. Have a great weekend and stay safe. And hopefully you'll be able to travel soon and we'll all see each other at a concert. Yeah? See you soon.